Hola clase, ¿cómo están? Well, before I begin today's lesson, I just want to show you 3 pictures of Antigua, Guatemala. And this is a hill that overlooks Antigua. In the background, you can see El Volcán de Agua. Last year, I climbed this hill to take this picture, and I had climbed this hill many times before. This right here is one of the many churches in Antigua. This church sits in front of the Parque Central, the Central Park, and last year I attended Mass in this church, and I had attended Mass in this church many times before. And right here is another look at El Parque Central, the Central Park in Antigua. And last year, I visited this park many times. And I had visited this park many other times before. And so this is what our lesson is about, expressing what had been done before another past action. This is called the past perfect indicative. Past perfect. Some books call it the pluperfect indicative. Pluperfect indicative. I like to personally say pluperfect because I like that word plu. But our textbook calls it the past perfect indicative. It's different from the present perfect indicative that you just learned. This is the past perfect indicative. So let's learn all about the past perfect indicative. So as I mentioned before, the past perfect indicative is used to talk about what someone had done or what had occurred. And here's the key: before another past action, event, or state. And so this is completely in the past. Both actions are in the past. One that occurred before the other. So the formation of the past perfect indicative is just like the present perfect indicative. You will use a form of haber plus our old friend, the past participle. But this time, haber will be in the imperfect. And let's take a look at this formation. So here's haber in the imperfect, right here. And if you remember the imperfect, ER and IR verbs take an ia ending. So it's había, habías, había, habíamos, habíais, habían. That's the imperfect. That's the first part. This is the haber. And so here's 3 verbs: cerrar, perder, asistir. And remember the formation of past participles, the hado and the ido. For example, cerrar. Había cerrado, había cerrado, había cerrado. Habíamos cerrado, habíais cerrado, habían cerrado. Look at perder. Look at its forms. Look at asistir. Please also remember the tos and the chos, those past participles that are irregular. So let's take a look at this example. Ayer comí en el centro de Phoenix. Ya había comido en el centro de Phoenix antes. Notice which action occurred first. Obviously, it was this action. I had eaten there before yesterday. That is the pluperfect. It describes an action that was done before another past action. Here's another example. Cuando llegamos a casa, Felipe ya había salido. So ask yourself this question: which action came first? Felipe left or we arrived home? Well, the pluperfect indicative, or the past perfect indicative, tells us that this action occurred before we arrived home. That's why this is the pluperfect or the past perfect. When we arrived home, Felipe had already left. So do you remember the words ya and todavía no? Those words we learned really well in the present perfect indicative. Those words can also be used with the past perfect along with antes de. Antes de plus a noun or antes de plus the infinitive to describe when actions occurred. Antes de este año nunca había estudiado español. Before this year I had never studied Spanish. Luis me había llamado antes de venir. He had called me before he came. So clase, do you remember the puntos especiales that we learned for the present perfect indicative? Well, here they are again with one change, but please remember that the past participle always ends in an O because it's not an adjective, it's a verb form. So you don't have to worry about making the past participle agree. Remember one of my favorite expressions, the block that never breaks. The haber plus the past participle forms a block. Do not put anything inside the block and never ever attach a pronoun to a past participle. The two verbs. Tener is the main verb. Tengo muchos amigos. Haber is the helping verb. He tenido muchos amigos. And then here's the change right here, señoritas. Please make sure you write this down. The impersonal expression. We learned ha habido, there has been, with the present perfect indicative. Now we have había habido, which means there had been. This is for the past perfect tense. Había habido, past perfect indicative. So that wraps it up. If you have any questions, si ustedes tienen preguntas, esperen hasta que nos veamos en clase. Vamos a practicar mucho. Gracias.